The first time I lied to my followers, I told myself it was harmless. A quick fix to feed the algorithm. The truth is, that single post planted a seed that grew into something monstrous I could not control. Every like became a drug, every comment a dose, and I started chasing numbers instead of living. Emily said, I told myself it was just one filter, one caption twisted, but the moment the world believed, I started believing too. The ring light burned hotter than the sun, yet the room felt colder than any winter night. Jake said, You're glowing. Em, you're finally making it, and I smiled, but the smile was stitched on, fragile and fake. The silence after the camera clicked was louder than the applause, and in that silence I heard the ghost of myself whisper, You're losing me. My fans didn't follow Emily, they followed the ghost I created, and I fed them piece by piece until I didn't know where she ended, and I began. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It was slow, a quiet erosion of truth, until I couldn't remember what honesty even felt like. The first time I lied wasn't harmless. It was lethal, because it promised me love for being someone I wasn't. And that lie became my prison. Emily said, They didn't follow me, they followed the version I invented. My life blurred between real and curated, and I forgot which one deserved to breathe. The silence after posting was worse than the noise. It screamed at me. Jake asked, Why don't you just post as yourself? His voice was gentle, but his eyes carried doubt, as if he already knew the answer. I laughed, sharp and broken, and replied, Because myself isn't enough. The weight of millions pressed on my chest, faceless voices demanding perfection. The ghost in the mirror shook her head, lips mouthing words I refused to hear. I clung to my online self as if she were armor, but each like carved deeper wounds. Emily said, I kept chasing her, the girl with flawless skin, with endless confidence, but she was never me. And in chasing her, I lost the girl who once dreamed without filters. The first time I realized the lie was bigger than me, it was already too late. Emily said, Every DM was another thread unraveling. My inbox overflowed with strangers who believed they knew me, but they knew the ghost. Jake smiled, proud, telling me I had made it. Yet I wanted to scream that it wasn't me they adored. Emily said, I was addicted, every post another dose. The silence of the room pressed tighter, until even the hum of the fridge felt deafening. The ghost whispered, They'll never love the real you, and I believed her, because the love I saw was never mine. I was only borrowing it, renting it until the mask cracked. Emily said, Every lie demanded another, and the weight never stopped growing. I crafted captions like spells, each one casting me further away from truth. Jake warned me once, saying, Be careful, Em. It's not all real out there. I nodded, pretending to hear, but his words were drowned by the flood of attention. The ghost stood behind me, silent, waiting for the moment I broke. I wasn't creating content anymore. I was erasing myself with every post. Emily said, I thought I was building an empire, but I was just digging my grave. The applause wasn't applause. It was an echo chamber of strangers demanding more of the ghost. Emily said, The cancellation didn't scare me, the silence did. Each moment offline felt like drowning, like suffocating underwater no one else could see. Jake asked, Why don't you take a break? I whispered back, Because breaks are where people forget you. The ghost smiled in the corner, proud, knowing she had already won. Emily said, I wasn't scared of being hated. I was scared of being invisible. And that fear drove me deeper, further into the mask, until Emily was gone. Emily said, When the ring light turned off, so did the love. The room sank into silence, and I felt my chest collapse under the weight of emptiness. Jake whispered, You're not alone, but even his words echoed in the void. The truth was brutal. Millions adored me when I was glowing, yet not one voice asked if I was okay when the lights dimmed. Emily said, Their love wasn't mine. It belonged to the mask I wore. The ghost leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her eyes filled with pity. I hated her for being stronger than me. Jake said, Take a break and breathe. But I couldn't because every pause felt like death. I was terrified that if I stopped posting, I would vanish. Emily said, I wasn't scared of being cancelled. I was scared of being forgotten. In the silence, I realized how alone I truly was, even with the whole world watching. Emily said, I used to dream about being seen, but I never dreamed about being hollow. The applause became static. The love became noise, and I couldn't hear myself anymore. Jake said, You've built something incredible, his voice proud but blind to the emptiness clawing inside me. I smiled because smiling was easier than telling the truth. The ghost whispered, They don't know you. They know her. And the truth cut deeper than any hate comment ever could. Emily said, Even my laughter was scripted. Every word, every gesture had become currency, and I was bankrupt of authenticity. Jake reached for my hand, but I pulled away, not out of anger but out of shame. I was drowning, and I didn't want him to see me sink. Emily said, I thought if they saw me, really saw me, they would run. I scrolled through thousands of comments, searching for love, but finding judgment dressed as devotion. Jake said, Ignore the trolls. They don't matter. But I couldn't, because even the praise felt poisoned. The ghost stood beside me, whispering, You've given them too much of yourself. There's nothing left. My chest tightened with the weight of her words. Emily said, They adored perfection, not me, and I kept handing them pieces of a person who didn't exist. Every night, the glow of the screen carved new shadows on my face, and I forgot how to look at myself without filters. Emily said, The likes never hugged me back. I sat in silence, staring at the screen until my vision blurred. Jake asked, What are you even chasing, Em? His tone was gentle, but my silence answered for me. I wasn't chasing success. I was chasing worth, and I had placed it in the hands of strangers. The ghost sat cross-legged on the floor, smirking, whispering, You traded your soul for a spotlight. Emily said, Every heart icon felt like oxygen, but it was smoke, vanishing before I could grasp it. I built an empire of emptiness, and every brick was laid with lies I told myself. Emily said, I was never enough for them, but too much for myself. The mirror reflected someone I didn't recognize, polished and painted, a stranger wearing my skin. Jake stood behind me, his reflection softer, yet his eyes revealed a fear he never voiced. Emily said, They adored her, but she wasn't me. The ghost pressed her hand to the glass, her lips whispering words only I could hear. Come back before you disappear. I swallowed tears, painted another smile, and stepped into the spotlight again. Jake muttered one day, Em, you'll break, but I already had. Emily said, Every secret I buried grew teeth. My managers demanded more staged moments, more brand deals, more flawless lies, while my chest tightened like a cage around my ribs. Jake said, You don't have to do everything they ask, but he didn't understand. They owned me now. Every contract was a leash. Every photo shoot another brick in the wall between who I was and who I pretended to be. The ghost leaned closer, whispering, You traded freedom for applause. Emily said, Every smile was a transaction. Every post an act of survival. I wasn't thriving. I was drowning under lights that burned brighter than the truth. And still, I said yes, because saying no felt like disappearing. Emily said, Every brand saw me as a product, not a person. They wrapped me in scripted captions, handed me smiles to wear, and reminded me I was replaceable. Jake asked, Why do you let them? His tone was sharp, but my silence cut deeper. The ghost whispered, They love her, not you, and I felt the truth coil inside my chest like barbed wire. Emily said I lied to strangers, but the worst lie was telling myself it didn't matter. With each contract signed, I lost more of myself, until the ink on the page felt like blood. Emily said, Even my friendships became part of the performance. I let people in, but only as props in the illusion. Jake said, You've stopped trusting everyone, his eyes full of pain, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Every confidant wanted a piece of the fame. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every hug left fingerprints of expectation. The ghost whispered, You're alone even in a crowd, and I knew she was right. Emily said, The stage wasn't a place anymore, it was my life, and I didn't know how to step off. Emily said, the lies demanded bigger lies to survive. One photo wasn't enough. I had to create stories, orchestrate drama, feed the machine until it consumed me. Jake said, you're losing yourself. But I laughed, brittle and hollow, because I had already lost. My fans wanted more. Scandals, confessions, perfection. And I kept giving, even when I had nothing left. The ghost whispered, they'll never be satisfied, and my hands shook as I typed another caption that didn't belong to me. Emily said, every DM was a crack in my mask, every post another fracture in my soul. Emily said, I thought I was controlling the narrative, but it was controlling me. The machine demanded sacrifices, sleep, peace, truth. Jake pleaded, you're burning out, stop before it breaks you, but my silence betrayed me. The ghost leaned closer, whispering, they'll never love the real you, and her words were chains I couldn't break. Emily said, I kept feeding them illusions, but every illusion was another wound. And still I smiled, posed and posted, because collapse was easier than confession. Emily said, I thought the mask was mine to wear, but it was someone else pulling the strings. One night, I opened my phone to find screenshots leaked, messages I never meant for the world to see. Jake asked, who did this? His voice cracked with anger, but I already knew. The betrayal wasn't from a stranger. It came from someone who had seen me cry, someone I once trusted with my rawest truths. The ghost whispered, you gave them the knife, and they used it. Emily said, the worst wounds are cut by hands you once held. I realized the empire wasn't collapsing from the outside, it was rotting from within, poisoned by betrayal I had invited. Emily said, the betrayal came from the person I trusted most. My confidant Lily, the girl who once held my secrets, sold them to the highest bidder. Jake shouted, she was your friend, but the word friend felt like poison. Every memory replayed, our laughs, our whispers, her promises, and now they felt like rehearsed lines in a play I never knew I was in. The ghost whispered, she didn't love you. She loved the stage you gave her. Emily said, the truth wasn't stolen, it was traded, and my soul was the currency. Emily said, every headline turned my pain into their entertainment. Newsfeeds screamed my name, twisting half-truths into weapons. Jake begged, don't read them, Em, but I couldn't look away. The ghost whispered, they were waiting for this, and I felt the weight of a million eyes watching me bleed. Emily said, I thought fans wanted my life, but they wanted my destruction. Every article carved deeper scars until I didn't know if I was grieving the betrayal or the loss of myself. Emily said, I didn't know who to fear more, the crowd or my reflection. The fans screamed betrayal, hashtags demanding answers, while brands cut ties like slicing ropes. Jake said, you don't owe them your soul, but it was too late. My soul was already collateral. The ghost whispered, this is what they were waiting for, and her laughter was bitter and cruel. Emily said, I wasn't destroyed by strangers. I was destroyed by someone who knew my name. Emily said, the person they loved online wasn't me. It was a ghost I built out of everything I wasn't. My life had become a story written by liars, edited by enemies, and consumed by strangers. Jake whispered, Em, come back to yourself, but I didn't know where she was. The ghost leaned closer, eyes sharp, voice soft as glass-cutting skin. They'll never let you be real. Emily said, I thought I could control the lie, but the lie consumed me, and the world cheered as it swallowed me whole. Emily said, the storm didn't arrive quietly. It shattered me in one strike. My face was splashed across every feed, accusations screaming louder than truth. Jake begged, stay offline, Em. But silence felt like surrender, and I couldn't stop scrolling. Each headline stabbed deeper, each thread twisted into poison, and I saw strangers laughing at my ruin. The ghost whispered, this is the cost of being their puppet, and her words seared through me like fire. Emily said, the cancellation didn't break me, the silence did. The crowd I once fed now devoured me with hunger sharper than knives, and I couldn't breathe under their judgment. Emily said the crowd's love turned to venom overnight. I scrolled through comments that once adored me now filled with fire and contempt. Jake said, "Turn it off, Em, please," his voice breaking. But my fingers refused to stop. I was addicted to the pain, addicted to the proof of their hatred. Emily said, every word carved deeper into me. Every post was a funeral for the girl I used to be. The ghost whispered, "You begged for attention, now drown in it." And her laughter rang louder than the storm outside. I realized the same eyes that once crowned me, queen, now relished in tearing me down. Emily said, the stage collapsed, and I was buried under the rubble. I walked outside once, just once, and the flashes blinded me. Cameras screamed my name, mouths spit questions sharper than daggers. Jake pulled me back, yelling, "Leave her alone." But the mob only grew louder. Emily said, "They didn't want answers, they wanted blood." The ghost whispered, "You gave them your mask, now they want your face." I felt myself splinter in that moment, my body trembling, my mind fraying, until even my tears felt staged. The world wasn't watching me. They were watching me fall. Emily said, "My empire was a graveyard dressed in neon. Every brand pulled away, every contract evaporated, and every promise crumbled like ash in my hands." Jake whispered, "We can start over," but his words felt like lies because I couldn't even find myself. The ghost whispered, "There's nothing left to start with," her voice soft but merciless. Emily said, "I thought I was untouchable, but I was disposable. I sat in the ruins of my career, my name a curse, my reflection a stranger, and I wondered if the world would even notice if I vanished completely." Emily said, "The breaking point wasn't loud, it was silent." I sat in the bathroom, the mirror cracked, staring at a girl who wasn't real anymore. Jake called softly through the door, "Please, Em, let me in." But my voice was gone, stolen by the weight of collapse. The ghost whispered, "They don't care if you live or die," and for the first time, I believed her. Emily said, "I wasn't scared of hate, I was scared of emptiness." The storm inside me finally broke, and I realized there was nothing left to confess, nothing left to lose, only the echo of silence that followed me into the dark. Emily said, "The storm left ruins, but ruins can whisper truths." I sat in the silence, breathing shallow, realizing I was still alive. Jake said, "You're here, that's what matters," his voice breaking with relief. The ghost stood near, softer now, no longer mocking, only watching. Emily said, "I thought I wanted to be remembered, but now I just wanted to be real." The applause was gone, the brands gone, the fans gone, and in their absence I felt something I hadn't felt in years, myself. The silence wasn't death anymore, it was space. Emily said, "The lies stripped away everything, but in the emptiness I could finally breathe." I sat with no camera, no filters, just raw air filling my lungs. Jake whispered, "This is you, Em," and his words felt like the first truth I'd heard in years. The ghost leaned closer, voice softer than before, whispering, "I never left, you just forgot me." Emily said, "The empire crumbled, but maybe it had to." The silence no longer mocked me. It healed me. For the first time, I wasn't running toward applause or away from shame. I was simply sitting still. Emily said, "Redemption didn't come in crowds, it came in whispers." I opened a journal and wrote words not for strangers but for myself. Jake said, "You don't have to share this with anyone," his tone steady, protective. The ghost lingered in the corner whispering, "Write her back to life." Emily said, "For years I gave them illusions. Now, I'm giving myself truth." Each word inked on the page felt like stitching together a wound I thought was permanent. For the first time, I wasn't curating. I was confessing to myself. Emily said, "I used to think silence was death, but now it feels like survival." I walked outside without my phone. No makeup, no mask, and no fear of being seen. Jake said, "You're free, Em," his voice proud yet tender. The ghost walked beside me, not a tormentor anymore but a reminder of what I had lost and reclaimed. Emily said, I wasn't chasing followers anymore, I was chasing myself. The air tasted different, sharp and clean, and for the first time in years I laughed. And it wasn't rehearsed. Emily said, the Empire's ashes didn't suffocate me, they became soil. From them, I would grow something smaller, truer, mine. Jake whispered, you don't need the world. You just need you. And for once, I believed him. The ghost pressed her hand gently against mine, no longer a rival but a reflection. Emily said, I was never the mask. I was always the girl beneath it, waiting to be found. The silence wrapped me like a blanket, heavy but warm, and I let it hold me. Emily said, the ending was never theirs to decide. It belonged to me. The cursor blinked, taunting me like a heartbeat that refused to stop. The room was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint hum of my laptop. Jake stood in the doorway, voice low. You don't have to do this, Em. But I shook my head, because not finishing meant they would own my story forever. The headlines had dragged me into the dirt. The fans had built their spectacle. But the words I wrote now would be my choice, my confession, my truth. Emily said, this is not content, this is survival. The ghost leaned over my shoulder, not with mockery but with a solemn stare, whispering, every mask ends with a face. My hands trembled as they hovered above the keys. For years, I typed lies dressed as captions. But this time, I typed to free myself. The weight pressed on me like chains. But the moment the first words appeared, I felt them snap, one by one. Emily said, I won't let the silence erase me. I will define my own silence. The ghost nodded once, softer than before, as if even she believed me. Emily said, I thought the spotlight would crown me, but it scorched me alive. The memories came in shards, camera flashes blinding me, screaming fans calling a name that wasn't mine, headlines praising someone I never recognized. Jake whispered, it doesn't matter anymore, but his words couldn't erase the echo of those years. The applause still lived in my bones, and the silence after it had burned deeper than fire. Emily said, the love was loud, but the silence louder. The ghost stepped closer, whispering, you wore ashes as a crown, and you called it glory. My chest heaved as I typed, each word heavier than the last, each line bleeding out everything I had held back. These weren't captions or carefully crafted illusions. They were raw, jagged truths. Emily said, if I'm remembered, let it be for the cracks, not the mask. My hands steadied as my soul spilled onto the screen. And for the first time, I wasn't writing for them. I was writing for me, and that was enough. Emily said, they built me, but they never knew me. I hovered over the send button, my finger trembling as if the weight of the world balanced on its tip. Jake whispered, Em, you don't have to, his voice raw, pleading. But I knew I did. This wasn't for them anymore. This was for me. Emily said, every post I made was a plea to be seen, but this one is a farewell. The ghost stood behind me, softer now, whispering, they took your voice, now take it back. I pressed send, and the words vanished into the void, carried into a world that once consumed me whole. My chest collapsed and expanded all at once, relief burning like fire through my veins. Jake exhaled sharply, murmuring, it's done, as if the words themselves could close the wound. Emily said, the Empire was never mine. It was their fantasy. But the truth is mine, and it will stay mine. For years I begged strangers for validation, traded truth for applause, but now I gave myself back my voice. The silence that followed didn't suffocate. It set me free. Emily said, I thought I wanted to be eternal online, but I only wanted to be human again. The silence after my final post was heavy, yet for the first time it didn't crush me, it carried me. Jake said, this is the real you, his voice trembling, and I believed him. The ghost stood beside me, not as a rival, but as a mirror, her face whole, her edges no longer fractured. Emily said, I don't need to be seen anymore. I only need to see myself. I walked outside into dawn without fear. No makeup, no mask, no camera. Just me, barefoot on grass wet with dew, lungs filling with raw morning air. My laugh broke through, light and unplanned, a sound I hadn't heard in years. The ghost whispered, "You've come back," and for once I didn't resist. Emily said, "I am not applause, I am not silence, I am simply alive." The sky opened above me, not as a stage but as a horizon, and I stepped into it, finally unburdened. Emily said, "And that's why you'll never see me online again." The words didn't tremble. They cut sharp and final. Jake whispered, "Goodbye, Em." But I knew he wasn't speaking to me. He was speaking to the ghost dissolving into silence. The ghost smiled faintly, her form flickering, fading into the light as if she had only been waiting for this moment to let go. Emily said, "I wasn't born to be a mask, I was born to be real." My reflection in the cracked mirror showed no makeup, no costume, no staged smile, just me, exhausted but alive. The applause was gone, the noise gone, the judgment gone, and in their place was a quiet I once feared but now welcome. The silence wasn't punishment, it was peace. Emily said, "This isn't the end of me, it's the beginning." The curtain fell not with thunder but with stillness, and for the first time in years I didn't crave their eyes. I only craved my own.